another significant part of any engine swap is wiring. So what I've got on the bench in front of me here is part of the wiring loom from inside the car. I'll stick some pictures in after this section of some of the mess that I made and the bits of wire that I had all over the place, but I'll take you through basically what these bits of loom are. This rather large plug here I'm going to eventually eliminate. That's part of the loom that fixes the front bulkhead, and the engine side plugs into there. I'm eventually, once I've got rid of all of the wires, I shall eliminate that and just join each of these up to the corresponding wire in the engine bay side of the loom, just to make one complete loom. I've got this coiled up here, is for the throttle pedal. That's this part here. So that plugs into there, and obviously there's a throttle pedal. This plug here is for the speedo set, which plugs into the back, you can see there. I'm most likely not going to use this because I don't have a speed input from the engine. That comes from the ABS system on the Zafira, and obviously the Mini hasn't got ABS to take that speed signal input. I've also got the OBD diagnostic port, so the modules I'm going to have running on this car is the engine control unit, possibly that speedo set, and the immobiliser unit, so that'll be quite useful for diagnostics for those. And I've also got this is the immobiliser module and the plug for that, so that plugs in there, and then that ring will detect the chip inside the key there. So what I'll have to do is mount that somewhere and have this available to be able to go next to it to allow the engine to start. And that's pretty much all of the interior wiring loom I've got. I'm spending a lot of time with the wiring diagram on the screen up there, and just trying to match the wires up, because for example this immobiliser unit plug has a number of wires that are the same colour, brown. There's two browns and two brown and whites, but each wire does a different job. So what I've got to do is look at what pin they are, and then find out on the wiring diagram what pin they go to on another module. So there's a couple of them have gone to the speedo module, and others will pass through this plug to the ECU. So it's just, at the moment, it's a very slow and boring process of matching up what pin here goes to where. It's pretty straightforward, it's just a little bit tedious and a little bit boring. So I'm going to carry on with that, and hopefully over the next week I'll be able to get this wiring loom assembled and it'll be ready to test. So what I'm hoping to do is to plug into the speedo, the immobiliser module, and apply a power and ground to the right places to simulate the ignition coming on, and I should see the ignition lights come on there. I could even connect it to the engine and plug my laptop in. I should be able to see the ECU and the immobiliser unit then with the right software. So a lot of work to do. I'm just going to keep plugging away at it for now. So the wiring, it's quite a long, boring process. I've recorded about 3.5 to 4 hours of footage that I've crammed into a couple of minutes time lapse for you. I wanted to make it as short as possible. I wasn't going to put any of it in really, but I thought it's quite interesting to see to a certain extent. So basically I've got a wiring diagram on the computer screen that you can see up to the right, and the keyboard there, and I've just spent a couple of evenings over the last week or so just going through, checking pin to pin where each of the immobiliser module, the instrument cluster and the diagnostic socket, where each of those wires goes, so I could either join them to the other module or correctly label them at the end. So it's pretty tedious and took quite a long time to do this section. I would say in total about 7 or 8 hours work have gone into assembling that pot of loom, maybe even more, because I spent quite a long time the first day doing it, so probably around 10 hours have gone into making the first part of that loom, and I've still got the under the bonnet side to go. So it's just a time lapse of me sat on my bench making the loom. So this is the first part of the wiring loom complete. This is, for this particular car, there's a fair of the engine to come out of. This is the minimum number of wires from inside the car that you need for the engine to run. So Vauxhall are quite handy, I've learnt, in that anything that's a red wire, like these, is a permanent 12 volt feed. Anything that's a brown wire, like this one and this one, no, that's another red. These two here are ground, they go to negative. Anything that's a black wire, like this one, is an ignition live. And that makes it an awful lot simpler in being able to put this wiring loom together. So what I've got is a immobiliser module, the clock set plug and the diagnostic socket. They talk to each, they've got wires between one another, and then wires that go to under the bonnet. The ECU lives under the bonnet in this car. We've got an earth and a main feed, and then we've got these that go to the ECU, these ones and this one. So there's only really a handful of wires. That's part one of the wiring loom complete. As you'll have seen, it's taken quite a long time. The next stage, if I can find where I've put it, next stage is to go through this lot. There's a load of relays and obviously another big plug I'm going to get rid of. Large fuses. I know that plugs into the cooling fan and whatnot. A few other random plugs and bits and pieces. A few more relays. A big positive feed into these big fuses. It's got another large feed there. Yeah, so it's a big mess of wires. The key parts of this loom is this end. This plug plugs into the ECU and it separates there. So what I may be able to do, once I've understood the purpose of all these relays, is disconnect this here and cut the wires and just join those straight to this loom from there, and then plug straight to the ECU and get rid of all of that, which would be an awful lot easier because I don't need the big power distribution. As long as I can wire up the alternator and the starter, I don't need all that. I can use the majority of the Mini's original loom for that. I just need to be able to power, earth and ignition and communicate with the immobiliser for the ECU. That's it really from this loom. This side of the ECU plug is for the communication with the car. There's another large plug on the ECU which goes to all the sensors. So that's going to be in the next wiring video. Hopefully the next video will be starting to put some ideas together for the front subframe. I've got some steel now, so I need to start working on that. So I hope you've enjoyed. There's a lot of time lapse in this one, but I've got this ECU together. I have tested what I've done so far with some diagnostic software plugged into this port. and it does communicate with the cluster and the immobiliser unit, detects the key and all that sort of stuff. So that loom's good. I just need to get it connected to the next part and then I can test that. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again hopefully next week.